Could you hear that? I hope not. I was trying to do that and run really quietly this time. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, the 16th of February, 2024. What a week for Five Fact Friday this week has been. Is this the week when the news of what's really happening can be held back no more and will finally filter through to the mass population who get their news just from news headlines and don't look beyond that? And by the way, want to point something out. I don't think life is busy. Life is hard. You've got work, you've got kids, you've got everything you've got to, and actually often following the news is boring, and if not boring, depressing, or even both. So I understand why a lot of people just don't pay any attention to the news. They just want to watch entertaining, fun stuff. And so for those people, they're going to be completely unaware of what's happening because they'll just see occasional headlines that they scan and go, oh, well, it must be what's happening then. So I get it. But for those of you who are here who'd like to know what's happening beyond the headlines, well, I think this week's number one headline is that the news of being tipped into recession is going to percolate through, and perhaps for all of those people who've been wondering what to do, should we sell, should we move, it's going to be crystallizing their decision one way or the other. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens as a result of the news this week. Now, this is Five Fact Friday. Welcome to everyone. Welcome back to everybody. And welcome especially to all of the new followers, especially if this is your first Five Fact Friday. If this is your first one, I think it's a more interesting one than usual. Five Fact Friday, because a lot of you who complain about my Five Fact Fridays get this part wrong. Five Fact Friday is where I pick the 5 most relevant new since last Friday, so must have been new in the last 7 days. If it's before that, it doesn't count. Reported somewhere that we can verify it, preferably by government or other institutions, but in newspapers potentially. The fact that it has been reported doesn't mean that the data being reported is fact. Twist your brains up there a bit. But I'm reporting on what's being reported so you can make up your own mind, if that makes sense. So everything that I'm going to show you is a fact that it's been reported and it can be verified, but it doesn't mean it isn't wrong. But if you want to challenge me, I always welcome anyone. These are the 5 things that I think are most significant in the context of the UK housing market. If you think something's more significant, let me know. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always welcome, and genuinely, actually, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes people come up with a fact and I go, yeah, that was a more important factor this week than the 5 that I have found. But let's get started in no particular order. We're going to start with the Land Registry, or the ONS publishing the Land Registry's December house price. Here we go. 1 second. So now, quick reminder, I'm going to whip through these quite quickly and then ramble a bit at the end. So the facts are that in just this week, the ONS released the headline statistics for December completions. Now, I've got a poll running on Twitter as we speak, on X, asking the question, how many property transactions do you think were included in December's Land Registry, England and Wales only, house price index calculations, right? And there are roughly about 84,000 transactions a month on average, if you average out for the whole year's total. And the reason that I'm asking this is because I've decided that the house price, the best agent open source house price index, hashtag BoshP. I know it sounds terrible, but we've got to go with something. We're going to be setting a publication target that if enough of you publish your exchange price on your house transaction, that we exceed the Land Registry's most recent sample size, then that makes the best agent open source house price index data as valid from a sample size point of view as the Land Registry's. Okay, so there's the question I've asked here. How many do you think were included? 8,760? 5,799, 12,276, or 27,543. And those are the results so far, with 23 hours to go. It's very interesting. There's not really a clear winner. I mean, 8,000 is kind of winning at the moment. Anyway, never mind. Back to what they actually said. What did they say? They said the average price of a property in the UK was £284,691, which I think is probably the single most useless figure in the whole housing market, because it is meaningless to everybody. I've come up with a word for this. The ONS's house price index is confuseless. I've horribly mashed together confusing and useless, because that's what it is, because that blends together Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland and England. Two of them are going up, two of them going down. But the overall average, which isn't an average, it's a weirdly weighted, hedonically regressed, mix adjusted estimate. Nothing average about it. The annual price change of that number was down 1.4% on the year earlier, but up 0.1% on the previous month. And so lots of the screamers went, "Oh, house prices are going up." Okay, onwards. Anyway, onwards. Yeah, we're going to just skip through this. So next, we've got the GDP. And this is probably the biggest news of the week, all right? Because the GDP is now showing that we are officially in recession. The UK GDP is estimated to have fallen by 0.3% in Q4 2023, following a fall of 0.1% in the previous quarter. I'm going to go straight to the numbers because they're all that matter, right, in this graph here. Okay, so there we are. That's the last four quarters. So Q1 last year, there was a tiny bit of increase. Q2, it was flat, zero. Q3, it was down. And Q4, it was down. Q3 and Q4 down back to back, make it an official technical recession, meaning that the recession actually started, that the growth stopped in Q2 last year. So we've had 9 months without growth so far. But just look at these headline figures here. This is what really matters, okay? Because what we're seeing here is that actually they're saying that GDP for the year was 0.1 average of growth, but if you add up these ones, it really isn't. It's just the way they work out the average for the year. All right. But what is of much more importance to us as individuals is the second column, the GDP per head. Okay, which was heavily down last year, down minus 0.7%. It was down at every quarter. This is personal wealth, right? Shrinking. And as we found out, it's been shrinking for 2 years. But this news was all over the headlines, although last night, the BBC on the BBC News at 6 on BBC One, it was the headline, Britain enters recession, but this sentence came out, and I would love to know who scripted this sentence and who decided to make this statement that Sophie Rayworth could read out on the BBC News at 6, which is, the good news is this recession is a small one. How can they make a statement like that? They're making it like, that's it. It's over. That's it. We're in recession, but it's only a small one. Everything's fine. Let's move on. And then Faisal Islam, who is a journalist that I have always actually thought, yeah, he's pretty good, pretty much respect his. He came on and sat down and looked at her and said, yes, Sophie. So, and he talked about it a bit and then finished up by saying it could last a couple of months. And so for an innocent, unresearched person watching that news, they're going to come away from that thinking, oh, it's only a small one. Not only the last couple of months. Everything's probably fine. That was the message. And I was just a bit horrified at the total lack of objectivity and impartiality on that point. Because if they'd said, hey, look, it could be over in a couple of months, it could last for a couple of years, that would have been impartial reporting. But to say it's only a small one and it'll be over in a couple of months is profoundly, I think, misplaced journalism in that respect. Anyway, what do you guys think? I would love to know what you guys think. We're in recession. That hit all over the headlines. It's all over the headlines today. That's going to affect the housing market because of people's confidence about moving. How it affects it, I don't know, but it is going to have an effect. Okay, and the next point is inflation. So fact number 3 is that January's inflation figure was announced. Now, links to all of these web pages are on the link below this in the 5 Fact Friday blog on my website. I've linked to each of these pages. You can go look for yourself. We'll go up to the headline in a minute, but I wanted to just start with this. This is CPIH, owner occupiers housing costs, highest since at least January 2006. Now, look, this is an interactive graph, and you can remove bits. If you remove electricity, gas, and other fuels, look at how the graph shape changes. Boom. That is one of the largest contributors to the overall inflation figure. And of course, electricity and gas has come down because those massive energy spikes have come down. But look at that. Is there anything there that tells you that inflation is coming down? No, not much to me. I don't think so. Anyway, let's just go up and read the headlines. I think this one is important as well. Housing and household services is still one of the largest in CPIH. There are things. Now look at this graph here. I think this is interesting as well. The latest move in CPI inflation. If you just look at this trend, can you all see this? Have I got this on the screen? I want to just double check this on the screen. Let's get it nice and big. So those 4 lines, right? Goods, which was the highest one a couple of years ago. Goods was the highest and fastest growing one. CPIH was 4.9, was the second one. CPIH excluding energy, food, alcohol, tobacco was the third one, and then services was the fourth one. And now we get to where we are now, and they're completely inverted. All right? CPIH is really stubbornly sticking at 4.2%, where it's been for 3 months now, right? This is the third month in a row. 4.2 in November. And it's the headline figure, right? 4.2 in November, 4.2 in December, and 4.2 in January. How anyone can make the statement inflation is falling when you look at the movement of those 4 colored dots in the last 3 months. Inflation has stopped falling. That is a statement of fact. Inflation has stopped falling. Now, it may continue to fall. I'm not saying it won't continue to fall, but everyone who says inflation is falling is not paying attention to this last 3 months here, right? It ain't falling. It ain't falling. So that is fact number, what are we there? We are through, I can't even keep count. Let's get on to the next one, because I also wanted to cover, actually, it's going back to this one. I covered them both, actually, GDP and GDP per head. Those are 2 different facts, and they're both linked to below because they are different facts. The country's GDP in recession, but personal GDP has been in recession for 2 years. I've covered those 2. So we get now to what I think is actually outside all the government stuff. This is not being reported, okay? And this is fact number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fact number 5. I think this is probably, arguably, the biggest news. It won't be reported in the consumer press because, well, for obvious reasons, I think, but commercial real estate is in big trouble and the problems may have major financial fallout. This story was out just this morning. And this is not news to anyone who's been following commercial property for a long time. It's not news. But for anyone not following, you should be aware of why I think this is relevant, okay? So there are growing signs that commercial real estate is in serious trouble. Let's have a look at some of the numbers quoted in here. That's nearly $1 trillion, or 20% plus of the total debt owed on US commercial and multifamily real estate will mature this year, Bloomberg reported this week. Borrowers may have no choice but to refinance at much higher interest rates or sell their properties at a big discount. Property jitters are being felt in Europe too. The value of bonds for Germany's Pfandbrief Bank tumbled this month as investors fretted about its exposure to the embattled commercial real estate industry. Moreover, the European Central Bank has threatened to impose steeper capital requirements on lenders unless they take these risks seriously. Why is everyone so worried? In a nutshell, if you read the whole thing, it's saying that this could be something that sparks a major financial event. And a major financial event would affect credit and borrowing and perhaps lead to another bigger credit crunch. But this is something that in the investment community is being very seriously watched. Okay, because what's happening is a lot of the people holding this debt are trying to delay or procrastinate what's called marking it to market. If you mark to market your holdings, and in some cases we're talking about reductions of 60% in the values of these assets. Once you trigger that effect on your balance sheet, it has like a chain reaction effect on lots of other things where legislation and regulations say, well, if your balance sheet value does this, then this must happen and that must happen. And there's a lot of worry about what's going to happen when these very, very, very big falls in commercial real estate holdings have to be refinanced or have to be marked to market, and the effect on the balance sheets and the wider collateral effect of damage into the financial markets as a whole. It's so big, this potential exposure, that it is a bit of a commercial property debt time bomb that could trigger a financial event of some sort. I'm reporting that the fact that this has been reported, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I'm calling it out as something to be watched closely enough, because if it does happen, it will hit everything. It will hit the housing market if this happens, right? That's what I'm saying. So that's number 5. And I've got a bonus number 6. This is a bonus fact number 6, because just for fun and just to have some smiles in a week of pretty downbeat and depressing news. So Callum Pickering, who is an economist I had not encountered before, published an article on the Telegraph website saying Britain is on the verge of a new house price boom. Oh, this is going to come back and bite him. This is going to come back and bite him. I mean, I cannot believe it. Now, there's this tiny caveat. So here he says, it is now even more evident why the panic over a property market crash was overblown. It is time to turn positive on housing, but with an important caveat. And this is where his entire premise falls down. I've got to find it, where he talks about being too pessimistic, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Where's his golden line here? Sorry. Here we are. This is the caveat. Right? As long as people keep their jobs, that's a really massive if. And given all of the news about the economy, about recession, about corporate failures, about insolvencies, about personal GDP coming down, about job layoffs, about economy, unemployment rising, about job vacancies falling, given all of that overwhelming news on what's going to happen to jobs, I think this kind of undermines his story. Forecast. This is the OBR forecast. I'm afraid, well, the OBR is famously crap with its forecast anyway, but I wanted to report this because, some of you might have been thinking, but Charlie, you're being so negative. There was a story in the Telegraph about how there's going to be a new house price boom, and it was an economist who wrote it. I'll tell you something. Economists do not get their head around. So I've got a background in the city and a much, much bigger background in property. And the one thing that's always amazed me is how economists, who by their very nature will only make comment and observation and prediction and forecast based on number crunching and trends and that kind of stuff, which is fine, that's what you do, overlook the dynamics and the things that affect properties and the property market and its liquidity and all kinds of stuff. And the fact that unlike any other market at all, it is driven by life events and emotion and irrational inputs, which are not forecastable. And no economist I've ever met has got that, which is why so few economists have ever correctly called house price falls. Right. Okay, guys. Do we have any questions that are... Oh, Amir says, hi, Charlie. A very large residential developer in the Northeast is shedding hundreds of construction jobs next month. It's getting so bad. Sorry to hear that. Rangas on X makes a very, very intellectual contribution here. He just says, bollocks. Thank you. Thanks for input. Imdadal Hack says, it says 8,000 on the HPI page. I know it does. That will be changed momentarily. Hold on a second. It might even, it hasn't been changed yet. That's going to be being changed today, the actual target, but it is 5,000. I'm not supposed to say yet. I don't want to reveal the actual number. Marketing Medicell, hello, that's a new name, says UK is indeed falling apart and the time of reckoning is coming. Probably the property crash will start now and might even have bank runs. I do think that in retrospect, because of some of the multiple differences about this particular house price downturn, it will not be as precipitous as previous ones. It will be a slow one, a slower slide, which is why I keep saying it's going to be a slide, not a crash. But what is, to me, an unavoidable certainty is whatever's happened so far, whether I can prove it or not on house prices, there are much, much further falls to come because of what's happening in the economy, recession, inflation, all that kind of stuff. Dar, who is one of my, he's one of my fan trolls. He's a troll, but he just can't keep away and keeps on watching. Dar, you've been watching me enough. You know the answer to this question. He says, when are the 35% property falls as you predicted? I know you know the answer to this question, Dar, so I don't know why you're asking the question. 3 years, roughly. I have never said a sharp end date. The bottom will be at this point. I've said 35% from peak to trough, nominal, over as long as it takes, currently guessing around 3 years. So not by the start of 2025, as my numpty friend Knucklehead Russell thinks. He's now saying, only 10 months to go, Charlie. No, that's the end of 2024. During 2025, and we won't see the prices reported till 2026. I'm getting so tired of saying this. I don't know when. It's whenever they finish coming down. Whenever that is, that's when it'll be. And that's when we'll be able to see whether or not my expectation was way off or actually somewhere in the ballpark. Harj Bakra says 4% inflation is normal looking previous data. Yup. Steve says GDP per capita more relevant than headline figure. No surprise, the incentives to work or work more are diminishing. High house prices and rents are killing the economy. Correct. Agreed. Okay, Dart. So I'm just going to entertain this for a minute. Charlie is always negative. Have never heard a positive note from his mouth. Just puffs out negative guff. He looks for negative news and avoids the positive. How depressing. Okay. All right, Dar. You bring me your 5 verifiable, reportable government-backed data or similar facts from the last 7 days that you think are positive. Oh, I know. There's one that came out this morning. Retail sales rebounded in January after... So stronger than expected retail in January. So yes, ONS figures this morning say retail sales were up 3%. They didn't come back up as far as they fell in December. So there was November, December, January, and they were already still quite bad in November. So yes, do I think that's going to have any impact on the housing market? No. And that is why I haven't mentioned it as one of today's 5 facts. So come on, Dart, you tell us, you give us the links. Take us to the facts reported in the last 7 days that you think will have a bigger impact on. I haven't even talked about the fact that NatWest has put its mortgage rates up this week. So there isn't even any positive news there. You bring me a fact, even one that you think is more relevant to housing. Okay, I'm just reporting what was reported that I think is housing. So just, you're being a bit emotional, I think. Alexander RR says, Charlie, do you think the UK recession will go down deeper into depression like it happened in Spain during the 2009 economic crisis? No one expected that either at the time. I do think that. And the reason I think that is because I look all the time for any signs of economic growth. I think there's an opportunity to create economic growth that no government is yet talking about, but it's the one I've always mentioned, which is a massive government house building scheme where the government competes with the private sector to build houses that can be provided to rent, so that they don't set rents, but by providing a lot more rental properties where they're needed, it'll create the market price will settle. And the government will own these assets, and the taxpayer will start to own assets that have a return, rather than selling everything off and borrow, sell, borrow, sell, borrow. Of course we're fucking bankrupt as a country. All we've done for 40 years is sell, borrow, sell, borrow, sell, borrow. I mean, that is a surefire way to end up absolutely bust. Don't sell your assets and don't borrow. And if you are going to borrow, at least borrow to build a lasting asset that's going to give you a return, like, fucking housing. Yes, it's going to be deep and it's going to go long because there is no source. And if you think about it, right, looking back, and Alex has talked about this repeatedly, you look back at the economy over the last 15 years and it's just barely stayed positive, the GDP, despite intense money printing and money supply and stimulus. Despite all of that, we've barely kept the economy afloat. Northeast Corner, Chris. Hello, Chris. Chris Watkin, my old friend. Chris is the presenter of the Stats Show on YouTube, and he is a very highly regarded and popular figure amongst the estate agency community. How about gross sales for last week, 20% higher than the weekly year-to-date 2024 average? All right, Chris, let's entertain this for a minute. Tell me how that affects anyone who's just trying to sell their house right now. I think those figures are perhaps interesting to estate agents. It doesn't even affect them very much, because if you're an individual agent, how does this help you? 20% higher than the weekly year-to-date 2024. I mean, we're only, 6 weeks into 2024? So I don't see the significance or the context of that figure. 20% higher than a very, very low figure. I mean, if you look at that, I'm going to find it actually, because it was a very, very powerful graph on house prices. Where is it? Here it is. Right, share this tab. So this is on the first link I showed you. So it's the ONS house price index. This is transaction volumes over the last 5 years. All right, sales volumes for 2019 to 2023 by country. All right, in October. And look at the UK, it's the orange one. Look how much it fell. So we're going from such a low base, Chris, that a 20% uptick in a week is of no significance to long-term housing market expectations, I don't think. The housing market moves so slowly that I just don't see how 1 week's change is relevant. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Please reply again in the comments if you want to. Guys, I'm not. Thank you very much, Steve. Charlie is not negative. He's realistic. Optimism and pessimism are as counterproductive as each other. And optimism and pessimism are only required when realism isn't possible. But realism is possible if you're prepared to go out and look at the trends and the data. And it is a massive head to try and do it. And it's exhausting to do it. So I don't blame people who don't want to spend too much of their life doing this. But I am only ever as realistic as I can be. And, you know, I just want to go back in the 2022 when I started calling housing market coming down one way or the other. 2023 is now on the record right there. Look at that, right? As a terrible year for people wanting to move house. What else do we have? Right. Okay. I was hoping to get a fact from Dar, but all we got was hip hip hooray from Dar. So that's the best. I mean, he's being positive. Yay! Hip hip hooray! Dar hasn't got any other facts for the week that we can report that actually affect housing. So, thank you guys. If I have time today, I will also do 5 question Friday and one other thing, and also. I don't want to shout about it too loud, which is why I've kept it to the very end of the video. But the house price index is now live. And it's been live for a little while, just only overnight. And it's already had some people registering their house, their exchange prices. And if you would like to do it, I will just put up on screen the URL. Okay, so that's the URL where if you want to go and test it, I just want a few people. I want to keep it trickling. So far, the security has already flagged and blocked a couple of let's just call them suspicious attempts to register prices. We've got multiple layers of security this time, and we are quietly confident that the house price index this time is going to be standing up. And as soon as we are really confident that it's really robust and stable this time, we're going to be starting to really blow it up in terms of publicity and ramp it up and see if we can't beat the number of exchange prices reported than the land registry managed in their most recent sample size, which was shockingly small. Shockingly small. It makes a mockery of the fact they can put out a house price index at all for December. Absolute mockery of it. And it's a short month, I know, but yeah. And otherwise, guys, do we have any more last minute questions? Chris, another thing is gross sales exclude fall throughs. Have you got your fall throughs data? Got the fall throughs? I think, yeah. So it's Billy Bob says, Charlie, please ignore the trolls. Your insight and incisive commentary is priceless to those of us trying to understand the UK housing market. Thank you very much. It's Billy Bob's. I mean, Dar has never been rude. He's never been personal. He's just constantly objected to my content. And so that's why I'm happy to, anyone and everyone is welcome on this channel if you just want to talk about housing, no matter how much you disagree with me. So Dar is welcome here. Don't spoil it, Dar. Don't now be personal with other people in the comments. And it is a fair challenge when people say to me, "Oh, Charlie, you're so negative all the time." Now, my response to that is, it's not me being negative; it's the data being negative. And also, it's not negative unless you're someone exposed financially to house price falls. Of course, there are plenty of people who are exposed to house price falls, but for those of you who are waiting for affordability to improve, it is not bad news if house prices come down. Transaction volumes coming down is bad for everyone. Right? There aren't exceptions. Falling transaction volumes make it harder to move house. It makes liquidity lower. It wipes out good estate agents. Bad estate agents who lie to get large market share volumes actually benefit when the good estate agents go out of business because transaction volumes are too low. So, I have never championed falling transaction volumes. It's bad for everybody. And everything that I'm doing is to try and help more transactions happen by trying to bring price reality to the market, which is why we're doing this house price index. And let me just have a quick little look live right now and see if anyone else. Yeah, okay, so yeah, there's a couple more people who've triggered the security measures recently. What's absolutely blowing my mind is that so far we've had more sellers reporting their sold price than buyers, which is a fantastic, but not what I expected. I would have assumed that buyers would have been more happy to say, hey, I just paid this for this. So amazing. Hey, Dar, if you want to appear on my channel, you need to just contact me privately, and so I know who you are, because I don't know who you are. Give me a LinkedIn profile or something. Anyone who wants to talk about housing is welcome to appear on this channel. I welcome anybody who's got a coherent debate point to have on this channel. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. If housing affects you and you want to talk about it, you're welcome on this channel. Just come and ask me. All right. Oh, John Rock says, how far do you want to go back with your exchange prices? I mean, if your exchange price has not yet been registered with the land registry, you'll be helping things along if you report it with us. So it doesn't really matter as far back as you want to go. I mean, probably much more than 6 months may not be useful. But I mean, we welcome them all because all of it's adding to the whole data set. So if you'd like to, then please do just go and add your last August, please, John, please, put it in. It's great. Yeah, and I appreciate your challenges too. Okay, right, guys, got to wrap it up. It's supposed to be quick and short, and I've rambled on for ages. Thanks a lot. And to those of you who haven't yet tried it out or reported what you're paying for your rent, but especially what we're looking for is what price you exchanged at. And if you're an agent watching this and you haven't exchanged, you want to report, please go to that URL, which I'll put in YouTube as well, a link to it, and report it. And let's see if it can withstand the hackers this time. You've done us a favor, actually. I mean, it's frustrating and annoying, but you have done us a favor because you've helped us find where the weak spots were and strengthen them. So that's good. But who are you? Why are you doing this? How is it helping you? Do you think I'm just going to give up and go, oh no, the hackers have stopped us. I'm just going to give up on 23 years of my career because hackers are stopping us. What is it the hackers hope to achieve other than actually giving me more publicity? I don't know. All right, guys, have a fantastic Friday, fantastic weekend. See you on the next one. And Sunday live stream at 7. Hopefully, provisionally confirmed, we've got Alex joining. So we'll have a really good unpicking of what's happened in the economy this week and how we think it's going to change the market. So see you on Sunday stream at 7, if not before. Bye, guys.